Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Squarcia, Director of Counseling here for the district. Thanks for joining us for our NCAA night. Kelly Steele's going to be taking you through most of the program, and I'll be helping out where I can, answer questions or other things. I just want to show you real quickly where our counseling webpage is. Make sure you know where you can access this information. So from our district webpage, if you go to high school and either North Hunterdon or Voorhees, either one, and then go to the counseling webpage, and under college and career resources. So we have a bunch of different information here that will help you with the college process, things like career information, college forms, college planning, and then you go right down here to NCAA eligibility. That's where the information that you're going to be seeing here tonight with some other information as well. We have testing information and other things here. Also on the counseling webpage, scheduling information if you need to refer to the course selection guide, that's there. Other scheduling information, scholarships and awards, very important for our seniors, or next year if you're a junior, looking at that, local scholarships for both schools located there, mental health and support services. And then if you ever need to contact your counselors, that information is right under here, under contact us with the caseloads and contact information. So again, thank you for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Steele for the program tonight.
All right, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. As we go through this information, if you have questions, please stop us and ask as we're going through this. There's a lot of information we're going to give you guys over the next probably half hour to 45 minutes. So just like I said, as you have questions, stop and ask. All right. So our first slide, I always like to talk about probability of kind of continuing that college, that athletic experience past high school. So NCAA provides a lot of different statistics. They kind of break out certain sports, not all of them. So as you can see, certain sports have a higher percentage. Men's ice hockey, 12.3%, but then you go to men's basketball, which is 3.5%. And approximately of those student athletes that are participating in sports in college, about 2% of high school student athletes are awarded some form of athletic scholarship, and that average amount is roughly $18,000. So that's just that athletic scholarship. Some schools, you're going to possibly be getting academic money on top of that, or grants, or other things like that, but this is specifically that athletic scholarship average for student athletes in the country. So, am I being recruited? So I'm sure many of you are on club teams, travel teams, possibly going to college showcases, college camps, those different types of things. So are you getting brochures for camps? Are you getting questionnaires? Non-athletic recruiting materials? Are coaches coming to watch your sporting events? All forms of communication are permissible September 1st of your junior year. That being said, I know some of you have had communication with colleges via maybe your travel coach or kind of liaison or something like that. College coaches know the rules. They're not looking to break them because then they get sanctions on their teams. But they find ways to communicate with you if they're interested in you. But that official communication via you to the athlete to the coach starts September 1 of junior year. That being said, if you're on a college campus as a sophomore and you walk into the athletic office, just there to visit, you walk into the athletic office, you're a women's soccer player, and you ask to talk to that women's soccer coach, they can talk to you because you have initiated that conversation. So, can you recruit colleges? Yes, in fact, we encourage it. So, students can contact the coach or college at any time. Any contact initiated by the student or the parent is permitted, and any contact that happens on the college campus is allowed as long as the student is initiating that. You definitely want to make sure you're recruiting that college as much as they're recruiting you, and we'll get into that as we continue on. So official visit, we hear that term thrown around a lot. So what is it? It's any visit to a college campus by you and your parents paid for by the college. The college may pay for all or some of your expenses, as including transportation, room and meals, reasonable entertainment. For example, if you're going to visit a school, they might pay for a ticket to the football game, a basketball game, something like that. And you must have a certification account, which is $90 with the NCAA Eligibility Center before you can go on an official visit. There are two types of accounts on the NCAA website. One is free, so if you're not 100% sure whether you want to play sports in college or if you want to go Division 1, 2, or 3, you can start with that free account and then move it to the paid account for $90. Once you move to that paid account, that's what it is. They're not reimbursing you your money if you decide you don't want to play Division 1 or 2 or you don't want to play sports in college. So for more information really about official visits, when they can happen, how many you can get, it gets a little sport specific. If you get on the NCAA eligibility website, there is the recruiting calendar and there's the guide for college-bound student athletes. I print that every year. I keep it in my office. It helps keep me updated with any changes or information that the NCAA wants us to know. You can download it for free. It's a free PDF on their website. It gives you a lot of terms and information specific to sports. So a lot of details are in there about official visits. All right. Recruiting a college program. College coaches and recruiters are going to ask you plenty of questions. It's just as important for you to be asking them questions. So again, as much as they're recruiting you, you need to be recruiting them and make sure you're finding a place that is where you feel comfortable and where you feel is a good fit for you. All right, so different kinds of questions. NCAA has a lot of these on their website. These are just some that I've kind of pulled out. So examples of questions for the coaches. What position am I going to play on your team? You know, you might be for baseball or softball, a pitcher, an outfielder. Maybe you're a first baseman. Well, where does that coach see you in their program? Where do they see you playing on the field? Can I redshirt my freshman year? What does redshirting mean? You know, those types of questions. What expectations do you have for training and conditioning? What's your coaching style? How many can compete and earn scholarships? So scholarships are specific to each program. Coaches break them up however they want. So a specific program might have 3 full scholarships and they might have 20 athletes on that team. That coach might be breaking up those 3 full scholarships amongst all those 20 players. Or they have 1 athlete that's getting a full scholarship, they're breaking up those other 2 scholarships amongst 10 or 12 players. Academic requirements. So one of the big ones that we talk about is, can I major in what I want to major in and play a sport at your institution? So for example, I want to be a pre-med major. I want to go to medical school or PA school or something like that. Have you had a biology major on your team? What does that look like? Do I have to take classes over the summer? I want to be a teacher. I know I'm going to have to student teach at some point. Can I student teach and play this sport? So those are really important questions to ask because once you graduate college, most of us aren't making money in the sport that we were in college playing. We're making money by whatever we majored in. So making sure we're getting that education and able to major in what we want to major in when we go. Oh, another good one, academic supports. Is there tutoring available to student athletes? Do you have mandatory study hall? How are they academically supporting those students in addition to the sports? So what's a typical day of a student athlete? What does that look like? What are the residence halls like? Do most student athletes live on campus? Just kind of some general questions to ask about the life. Financial aid, details of the financial aid. You know, if I'm injured or suffer a career-ending injury, always a good one to ask, do I still get my scholarship? Are there academically criteria needed to maintain my scholarship? Under what circumstances would my scholarship be reduced or canceled? So athletic scholarships are renewed year to year. So if you get a certain scholarship freshman year, your performance increases during that time, the coach might offer you more money. And the opposite could happen as well. You know, you come in with a certain scholarship, they could decrease that scholarship depending on performance. So just be aware, those are year to year agreements with the institution. Again, the guide is your best bet for any information, so make sure you download that on the website, theeligibilitycenter.org. The 877 number is if you need to talk to someone or want to talk to someone, and then just more information on the ncaa.org, just more where you can find information. Okay, ask yourself, I ask my student athletes this, do you want to play your sport in college? Is that number one? Or do you want to go to college and if you can play sports, kind of a bonus? Two different trains of thoughts, two different things as to when you're looking at colleges, what you're looking for. Avoid the name game. You know, a lot of people want to go to, Alabama to play football or wherever, somewhere like that. But, in reality, most of us don't have the ability to go to these big name schools that we've always watched on TV. So where else can I go that's a good fit to get my major and play the sport that I love and I want to continue for another 4 years? All right. College coaches. They want the students to really advocate, right? They are once you get to the college, the student athlete is the one that's going to be interacting with the coach the most. So the students really need to be the one driving the bus in this whole process. So the student is the one reaching out to the coach. The student is the one that is having that interaction, that is, emailing or calling, or when you go into the office is the one initiating that conversation. College athletics is a job, and we will get into the hours that are required. So again, NCAA kind of breaks it down by sport a little bit. As you can see, they're all around for football, baseball, basketball, around that 40 hours a week. Full-time job for the week. So time management, if you're not good at time management, you need to get better at time management. Time spent per week. So you have 14.5 hours socializing and relaxing, 35.5 in academics, 33 in athletics, and 85 hours a week in other, which could be sleep, job, extracurriculars, that type of stuff. So as you can see, the athletics and the academics are almost even. D2, it kind of breaks it down a little bit. You have 37 hours in the academics, 31 in athletics, 15.5 in socializing, and 84.5 in the other category. So similar, a few less hours on the athletics, a few more hours on the academics, but a little bit similar. And Division 3, even more in the academics, even less in the athletics, still 28 hours, and then the other two are about the same. So they kind of break it down so you guys can see how many hours you're spending a week. So that's where that time management becomes super important. I know a lot of student athletes, even in high school, you guys are taking these academic loads here at the high school. You're traveling an hour possibly for practice multiple times a week. So you guys are starting that time management, but you really need to kind of hone in on that and make sure you're utilizing your time appropriately and effectively. All right. So 67% of Division I student athletes said they spend as much time on athletics during the off season as during the competitive season. So those off seasons, that's when you're doing your lifting, your speed and agility, you're practicing. I played tennis in college, right? So I would go and I'd hit with teammates in the off season because I can't just not play tennis for 3 months. So on top of the mandatory workouts that we had to do, we had to find time on our own to go play. If you're a baseball pitcher, you're going to probably have some type of pitching in the off season with the pitching coach. You're going to throw, you're going to do different things. 63% for Division II and 50% for Division III athletes. So as you can see, based on the division, and you saw on the pie charts before, it's just a little bit less. Okay. Academic success of the team. This is super important. Again, does the coach stress academics? We're going to college, we love the sport we play, but at the end of the day, we need to find a career. So what's the academic success? Does your major work? What's the support system? What's the graduation rate? What is the job placement rate? So these are all important questions to be asking, not only just for sports, but just in general at the college. What are they doing to help support you with job interviews, getting a career placement, resume writing, all that kind of stuff that becomes important once you're getting ready to get out into the real world. How many coaches do they have? Is it just a full-time coach and that's it? Do they have a head coach, an assistant, a speed and agility coach? How many athletic trainers do they have? Do they have a faculty advisor, an academic advisor? I know, for example, at Rutgers, each sports team has an academic advisor. So that academic advisor is helping them stay on track with their graduation. If they are traveling on a Friday and they have to miss classes, that advisor is giving them notes saying, hey, give this to Professor Smith because you're not going to be in class on Friday because you're traveling to, Maryland or wherever you're going for your game. So, what kind of support do the student athletes get at that school? Do they get to pick their classes first? Some schools' athletes get to pick their classes first because they need to schedule it around the travel or around their practice time. Conference affiliation, right? So you have schools like Rutgers who's in the Big Ten, right? Travel time's a big thing. They're going to Michigan, they're going to Maryland, they're going to, why am I drawing a blank? But all the Big Ten schools, Wisconsin, all that kind of stuff, right? So if you're maybe looking at a D3 school, say TCNJ, they're in the New Jersey Athletic Conference. So you're playing Montclair, you're playing Ramapo, you're playing Stockton. So that travel takes up less time, and it's less time you're away from classes, less time you're away from studying, all that kind of stuff. So how much time are you away from class is a good question to ask. Funding, do you have any meals that are paid for? If you are a wrestler, is your headgear paid for? Are your shoes paid for? Are your cleats paid for? If I'm a field hockey player and I break my stick, does the school pay for a new stick for me? What do the facilities look like? Strength and conditioning, just kind of that athletic funding and support that they get there. Okay, so campus visits, always important. You want to go, you want to meet the coach, attend a practice, attend a game, meet the players. The coach is always going to have you meet their, like a student, right? The person that's going to sell the program the best. But make sure you're also talking to all the other players on the team because they all have different perspectives, they all have different experiences, so it's important to talk to as many of them as you can to get a true feel of what that team is like. What's that, the camaraderie like? What's the environment like? What's the coach like? All the players are going to have their kind of own perspective on that, so the more that you can talk to, the more information that you're going to get from them. Maybe sit in on a class, talk to a professor, go eat lunch in the food hall, right? You're gonna have to eat that food for 4 years. Sit down, talk to a student in the cafeteria and just have a conversation with them about why they like that school, what brought them to that school. Talk to as many people as you can to get the information from the school that you can get. All right, so meet with admissions, discuss your academic, do you fit there academically, ask about financial aid and scholarships, like we were talking about. There's athletic money and then there's academic money, and see how that package comes together for you. Visit the school on a regular day, not just when the coach wants you to come. And verbal commitments, we put up there, are meaningless. Make sure they're in writing. Like, a verbal commitment is just that. You can verbally commit to a school as a freshman or sophomore in high school, and you can back out of that commitment just as easily as they can back out of that commitment. So nothing is official until it's actually in writing. In the packet that you guys have, there's a couple articles in the back. This was a few years ago, maybe 7, 10, I don't know, a little while ago. There was a football player that was committed to go to UConn. He was a senior in high school. Football coach at UConn switched. He revoked that kid's scholarship because nothing was in writing. It was a verbal commitment. His senior year, he was scrambling looking for a college program to play out. The second article in that is he ended up at Lafayette. So he did find a school, did end up going, but the coach came in as a new coach and changed the game on him in the middle of his senior year. I had a senior a few years ago that graduated, had a scholarship to play sports in college. COVID hit. NCAA granted college athletes an additional year. Athletes that were currently at that institution decided to stay. Her senior year, she lost her scholarship because NCAA was doing what they thought was right at the time and giving additional years to these student athletes that lost their senior year, but then it impacted seniors that were currently in high school. So just things to think about, to be wary about. We don't hear about it often, but it does happen. Even 6 months ago, there was an article that a new volleyball coach was Grambling State, I think. She came in, cut the entire program, and brought in all new kids. She was eventually fired. I did look that up. She was fired about 2 months after that. So things can happen, so just be aware of it. Biggest thing, Can I see myself at this college if I no longer play the sport that I'm there for? I went to TCNJ, that's where I played tennis. I loved TCNJ. I wanted to go there, that's where I wanted to be. I felt at home when I was on that campus. If I took tennis out of that picture, I still loved being at TCNJ. That's what you guys need to think about when you're on these campuses. Find that school that you just absolutely love and want to be at. Because unfortunately, you could get career-ending injuries. You could be a football player and you get that last concussion that unfortunately you're not allowed to play anymore. So is this a place that I see myself, that I like, that I want to be at, even if the sports are taken away? I can't stress that enough. All right, NCAA Eligibility Center, how does that work? They're the organization that oversees all college athletics. So students that want to play Division I or Division II sports, there are academic requirements in high school that all students need to fulfill to be academically eligible to participate in athletics once they get to college. If you're interested in playing Division III athletics, the Eligibility Center does not apply to you. If you get into that institution, then you're eligible to participate in athletics, that is Division III. So students should register, we recommend sophomore year. Again, you can start with that free profile. You don't have to pay them the $90 right away if you don't want to, but you should definitely register with them starting your sophomore year, and then as you go through the process, you can flip to that paid account. It's $90. Once you register, make sure you give your counselor a transcript release form. They're going to ask for your transcript at the end of your junior year usually, so they can kind of get an early read, see what's going on, and then we'll have to send that transcript after you graduate high school, because their number one criteria for eligibility is that you graduate high school. So we will send that at the end of your once you graduate and the transcripts are finalized. Again, it's the website, and you're not eligible until the summer after your senior year. It's what it looks like. Okay, so freshman year, what should you be doing now? So start planning. If you haven't let your counselor know that you're interested in playing sports in college, please let them know now. Students, make sure maybe you send your counselor an email, stop down to see them, just have that conversation, say, I was at the NCAA night last night, I haven't told you this, but I'm interested in college athletics, just to make sure we have you in the right classes that you need to be in. That's the big thing right now. Sophomore year, you can register with the Eligibility Center, and if for some reason you're behind in classes, we can help catch you up at that point. Junior year, you're just maintaining those grades, maintaining those classes that you need to be in. If you have your junior sitting here now and you haven't registered, you can absolutely go ahead and register now if you would like. And senior year, you need to complete your final NCAA courses, request your final amateurism, graduate high school, and then make sure you're letting your counseling office know that you need your final transcript sent to the NCAA Eligibility Center. Okay, so let's talk about classes. What is a core course? So a core course, according to the NCAA, is a course that qualifies for high school graduation in English, math, natural or physical science, social studies, foreign language, religion, or philosophy. It's considered a 4-year college preparatory class. It's taught at or above the high school's regular academic level. For math, it's Algebra 1 or higher, and it's taught by a qualified instructor. That is their definition, not ours. The big news coming out of NCAA about a month ago is they are no longer requiring SAT or ACT testing. So that literally just came out about 3 weeks ago. They had their caucus or whatever in January, and this is what they came out with. So you used to not only have a GPA requirement, but you had to have a certain SAT or ACT requirement. They've gotten rid of that. It was temporary on hold due to COVID, but now they're extending that for all student athletes. So that's the big news coming out of NCAA in the past 3 weeks. That's a live link if you want to read just more about it. Okay. Division I academic requirements, and we'll go through which of our classes are approved. You need 16 total classes for Division I. This is all in that packet that you guys have. That front sheet has Division I and Division II combined. The second sheet is Division I. The third sheet is Division II. So all of this information is in that packet. You need 4 years of English, 3 years of math, algebra 1 or higher, 2 years of natural physical science, 1 lab, which our sciences are lab-based, an additional year of English, math, or science, 2 years of social studies, and 4 years of additional classes. You have to earn at least a 2.3 GPA in those classes per the NCAA's calculation, not our calculation, and graduate from high school. If you are on track to graduate from the state of New Jersey, you're meeting these requirements, right? To graduate from either North or Voorhees, you have to take 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 3 years of science, 3 years of social studies, at least 1 year of world language. So if you're on track for this as well. The big thing is you have to have taken 10 of those classes before your start of your senior year, and 7 of them must be in English, math, or science. Again, you're on track, you're meeting that requirement, but that's a Division I requirement specific, which is that next slide. So there's different types of outcomes, right? So you have that full qualifier, graduate from high school, have that 2.3, you've met all those class requirements, you're a full qualifier, you can practice, you can get financial aid, you can get that scholarship, you can compete. You are a full qualifier, full to participate in your freshman year. Academic redshirt, that means you can practice in that first term, so that fall semester. You can receive athletic aid during that first year, but that probably means you didn't meet that 2.3 GPA requirement. You met your 16 classes, you graduated high school, but you fell short on that GPA. So they're going to admit you to the institution, you're going to get your eligibility up, and then you could you'll be able to participate, I think, starting your sophomore year, because you may not compete in the first full year, in their first year of full-time collegiate enrollment. And then a non-qualifier means you don't meet those, you didn't get your 16 classes in, you didn't get your GPA, can't practice, can't compete, can't get any athletic aid, and you have 3 seasons of competition, you can earn that 4th one back, but the institutions will work with you if you're a non-qualifier and they would like you on their athletic team. So that's something to talk to that coach about. Division II is very similar. They break it up a little bit differently. You still need those 16 core courses, only 3 in English, 2 in math, 2 in science, 3 additional classes instead of 1, 2 years of social studies, and then 4 of the additional in anything. It's 3 additional math, English or science. You need a 2.2 GPA, so it's a little bit less, and graduate from high school. They break it down a little bit differently for Division I and Division II, but really in essence they're looking for the same academic requirements. They just give you a little bit more flexibility with that math, science, and English additional class. And Division III, again, you're admitted to the institution, you're eligible to participate in athletics. Right, so which of our classes are accepted via the NCAA? Really, any of our classes, if you're in CP level or higher, so our CP, Advanced, Honors, AP, they're all accepted through the NCAA. The only ones at the CP level that aren't are if you're in Algebra 1A, Algebra 1B, or Integrated Algebra. Those are not accepted. As much as Mike and I have worked with the NCAA and discussed a lot of things with them, they just will not budge on those. They finally accepted our CP classes, but they will not budge on those. So if you're in those, talk to your counselor. There are some online classes that we can help you sign up for that would be NCAA approved, that we can get you kind of caught up if you're behind in those classes. And everyone here, yeah, the CP classes started being approved the 1920 school year, so which I think is every one of our students now. And with those additional classes, we also have other classes that are approved. So like, for example, if you guys take AP Micro Macroeconomics, that's one of those additional classes, it's approved. Crime and Justice is approved. Psych is approved. Each school has their own list of classes that are approved via the NCAA, because there's certain electives at Voorhees that are Voorhees specific. There's certain electives at North that are North specific. So you can check that on the website if you want, or you can ask your counselor. They'll be able to answer that question for you. All right, so you have 4 years or 8 semesters from the time you enter high school to graduate high school. That's what they consider on time. So you enter high school as a freshman, you graduate on time with your graduating class 4 years later. For Division I, you can take one class in between the time you graduate and the time that you enroll in that institution or start in that institution to make up a class. So you have one in that summer in between senior and freshman year. For Division II, you can take more than one over that summer if you need to make them up. We really recommend, if you know you're kind of behind in classes, that you kind of make them up as you go, so you're kind of keeping up and we're able to kind of help manage that with you. Okay, so once you're certified from an academic and amateur perspective, you can practice, compete, receive your financial package. Amateurism is really kind of, it's sport specific, right? So I went to school to play tennis, like I said. I played in tournaments over the summer. So if I played in a tournament where there was cash money prize and I won that tournament, I couldn't accept it. All right, but if I ran, say I wanted to run in one of the 5Ks, and I won that, which would never happen, but if I won that, and there was a cash prize there, I could take that. Because I wasn't becoming an amateur athlete in running, I was becoming an amateur athlete in tennis. So it's sport specific for the NCAA. If you have questions or you're not sure, just turn it down, right? It's better to err on the side of caution than to accept something and then possibly be considered not an amateur. Now you go and they have like this little like glass bowl that you win for something, you can take that. They're looking more for like money, car, or like those big types of things as to what you might not be an amateur in. Lots of websites. NCAA has a lot of information out there. They have the Eligibility Center, again, that guide for the college-bound student athlete. Those bottom three, the initial eligibility brochure, academic standards, that's all in your packet. So that's that information that we printed out for you. NCAA Eligibility Center is available if you guys have questions. Sometimes you have to wait a while, or other times you get through to them very quickly. It depends on the day. They are pretty helpful. They'll answer and kind of guide you where you need to go. But again, if you have questions, we can help you with that as well. NAIA is a small amount of schools in the country. If you're interested in playing a sport at one of those schools, it's just a different eligibility process, and that is their website. These are the links to those articles that I gave you. Just be careful. Scholarships are one-year commitments. They're year to year. You can work your way into a more full scholarship than where you started, or it can kind of change. Nothing is official until it's in writing. I can't stress that enough. So your scholarship, your financial aid package, your athletic money, until you sign on that dotted line or they give you something in writing, that's when it becomes official. If they plan to reduce or not renew your scholarship, they have to let you know in writing by July 1st, and you can appeal that if you want. And in most cases, it's the coaches who decide who gets what scholarship, how they break it up, and how they separate that money. That's it. I threw a whole lot of information at you guys. Whole lot. Somebody's got to have questions. Yes? Yep.
Yeah, that was big news on the SAT. Do you think some of the small Ivies or Ivies are still going to require as admission to the university, or like the last bracket you said, like that's like Tufts and some of those schools, they're still going to require it?
Probably. So you're talking admissions requirements versus eligibility requirements. Yeah, those schools, if they're requiring that the SAT or ACT, then they're most likely going to completely continue doing that. We are getting emails that a lot of the schools are still remaining test optional, but be careful. The admissions process requirements is different than eligibility. So just because NCAA says no, you're looking at Tufts or something like that, they're probably still going to require the ACT or SAT.
Yeah, to check that, you want to go to fairtest.org. That's a complete list of all the test optional schools and what all their testing requirements are. Fairtest.org. It's one of the things we have on the website.
Yes.
How does the early decision play into some of this?
Okay. So.
Best to jump on it if you've got.
Yeah, well, early decision, some coaches prefer early decision because then they can really lock in their rosters and know who's going to. Some coaches really push for that because admissions wants to see these kids and go through and make sure they're going to meet their requirements too. So some coaches really do push for the students to do early decision because that locks everything in, gets them in, make sure they're admitted, and then they can go. Some schools also are going to ask them to come early. And we've had athletes that have graduated early, a semester early, gone and competed, well not competed, but did some training and prepared them for the following year. So it really depends on how early they want you to get connected to the school. Sometimes they do ask you to do that.
And just to be with early decision is a binding agreement, right? So you're only applying to one school, early decision, and if you get into that school, that's where you're going, right? Regardless of financial aid or anything like that. Early action is non-binding, and you can apply to as many schools early action as you want, and that's just really applying early. So just to be aware, there's two different early type applications out there. Yes?
A lot of website links and stuff like that on your presentation.
Yes.
Is there somewhere that we can go see this presentation as a reference?
Yep.
Yes, the webpage I showed you at the start, right on the counseling webpage, this link to this slideshow is there.
So if you scroll down here, NCAA Eligibility Center,
Yep.
and then all the way down right here is that PowerPoint.
Yeah, all these slides
Yep.
are on there in the link.
Yeah, and then you can access those live links.
And they're recording this, so we are going to have this video up there. So if you had friends that couldn't make it tonight, they can watch the video too.
Yeah.
I'm confused by all the quiet, evaluation time, gas time, all those different things, and I'm sure it can't be explained clearly now either because it's different for each, but you made one point that parents and students can initiate contact. That's for any sport at any level.
Correct.
So if you go to a school and initiate contact there, that's fine.
Right. Right. Yep, at that visit, right? So that doesn't mean then they can email you and all that kind of stuff, but when you're at the college, you can initiate that contact.
So if you were to initiate them in a when they couldn't, if you send an email now saying I'm coming to campus next week, they can't respond or?
Right, you have to be on, you'd be better off just
Yeah, a
hopping
lot
in.
of times that's done through admissions.
Yep.
You can say, I'm coming for a visit. I would like to see the coach if they're around, so they may be able to arrange something like that. So you can go, as part of your tour, go down to the facility where the coach might be, and you can meet the coach, possibly. Sometimes coaches aren't real receptive to that, so don't be offended if they don't want to talk to you at that point. Some coaches are different.
And they could be focusing on a different class. So I have some student athletes that I've been talking to recently, and they are the class of 2024, but they are still, they're in the process with their sport, but the coaches are still trying to figure out their class of 2023 recruits. So yes, they're kind of on the radar, but the coaches are still focusing on a different class, so they're not at the top of their list because they're worried about it, the 2023 as opposed to the 2024. So it all depends on where the coach is in their process too.
And that really depends on gender and also sport as to how early they recruit student athletes. Because some, especially female sports, they recruit them very early. Sometimes in their junior year, sometimes even in their sophomore year, they're going to get commits. So it really depends. I mean, that's why, really doing your homework and studying and understanding the process is important. But that guide to the student, student-bound athlete, right? That guide will really help explain all of those downtimes and those, that when the coaches can talk to you.
And the dead period gets really kind of weird. I was helping a student athlete a couple years ago with volleyball, and she was really frustrated because it was a dead period and she just couldn't do anything. So it can be really frustrating because you're trying to get yourself figured out where you want to go and the coaches just can't talk to you. So it can be very frustrating depending on where you are in that process.
Yeah, the difficult thing for the student athlete in this process is every athlete develops differently. Like some athletes develop very quickly, and freshman, sophomore year, they're outstanding, and obviously they're going to have these opportunities. And then other athletes, it takes till their junior and senior year until they get bigger, stronger, faster, and they really can start to compete on that level. And then they're ready to be recruited, and the coaches aren't looking at them. So it can be a frustrating process, but you really just have to put your name out there, try to communicate, try to do what you can to do these visits, and go through that process, and hopefully it works out for the best.
What about social media? What role or not role should this have in the process?
No social media slide.
So social media can help or destroy a student athlete. So it's very important to watch what they post. You certainly want to post positive things that demonstrate how skilled you are, how good you are as a team leader, anything like that, any publicity that you might have, those are good things to post. You do not want to post pictures of you partying and doing things that will not fit into the climate of that team. And you have to be very careful with that because they do look at social media. Admission teams look at social media. Coaches look at social media. So that's a great point.
We did have a coach recommend, and I don't know how successful or unsuccessful this is, but it was a recommendation by one of our coaches, or a coach, someone here a couple years ago. But anyway, your Instagram account or one of those that if you're interested in, say, TCNJ football and you made like a great play or you had something really that you wanted them to see on that account, you could tag TCNJ football, and then that's a way to get across that coach's desk, right? So, or someone, or an assistant coach, because there's someone behind that account. Oh wow. There's someone behind that account running that social media account, so it's a way to get across their desk or get their eyes on you. So just something to think about, but social media is so important. It is there forever, ever and ever. So make sure you're posting, appropriate things and, things that wouldn't hurt you in that admissions process. We've had plenty of admissions counselors say the email address that the student used wasn't professional and it made us question things. So many kids are applying to college, so you're presenting yourself in a professional way that isn't going to deter someone from wanting to be interested in you.
Yeah, it's important to understand too where to put yourself to develop profiles, because coaches will go to websites and they will, like assistant coaches usually, will look at all of the statistics that are available. I forget, my son was a baseball athlete, and I forget where he actually posted his stuff, but that's where the coaches connect a lot of times with the student athletes. They're going to be looking for certain things, certain statistics, like your 40 time, how fast you throw. They're going to look for, you can post videos on those things. So they're going to recruit from there. a lot of coaches do not come to high school athletic events because they might go to a high school athletic event and see one student athlete. Whereas if they go to a tournament, or a showcase, then they're going to see possibly a dozen recruits that they're interested in. So they're going to look for most bang for their buck. So, if it's a regular dual meet for track, it's not likely that a coach is going to go watch that, but they're going to go to the Meet of Champions and see the athletes perform because they can get to see more of them at that time. So that's an important thing to understand. Don't be insulted if a coach isn't going to come to your first league game of the season. They're going to look for opportunities to see you and maybe a dozen other kids at the same time.
And the other thing to think about is if you are a basketball player, they're really not going to come to your high school games either because they're in season. So it is hard for them to get anywhere because they're coaching their own teams at that time. So they're looking for maybe those out of season times to go see. That's where those showcases, those types of things come into play. Each sport is kind of its own kind of difference. Like football has its own way of doing it. Some of my swimming athletes, they are getting ready to go to some state tournaments outside of like the school, and that's where coaches are coming, or those are like, maybe the coach isn't coming, but they're looking at those times from certain specific meets. So they're looking to get into the meets that coaches are at least looking at those times in.
Yeah, and things like swimming and track, I mean, the watch doesn't lie, right? So they're going to look for a track athlete, they're going to look at fully automatic timed meets, and they're going to see how they stack up because, if they're on yes, there's some variation for weather with track, but they're going to look at those times and see how those other athletes perform compared to your athlete, and they're going to look and find if you fit into their program, if they're going to bring something. So, that's an important thing too. Other sports, like team sports, like baseball, softball, basketball, it's a little bit different. There are specific skills that they're going to be looking for that, again, they're going to look at possibly a showcase or, a combine of some sort to see what type of skills you bring to the table.
The other thing to keep in mind is when you're going through this process, you say you're a goalie in soccer, field hockey, lacrosse. Are they recruiting goalies in the grade ahead of you? How many are they recruiting? Are they not looking for, you're a sophomore, so you're a class of 2025. They're recruiting 3 goalies for the class of 2024. Well, I know that school that I'm not going to see a lot of time probably because they're recruiting so many goalies ahead of me. Are they not recruiting a goalie the year ahead of me? So maybe I'd have more of a shot. So you're kind of also playing a game to see where you fall on their depth chart and kind of getting as much information from them as they will give you so you can weigh out your options. Because, most of us want to go to college and play at some point, right? Like we don't want to just sit on the bench the whole time. So where do I fall on that depth chart?
That's a great point because, that's also can decide, for an athlete that is pretty good at their sport, they may make a Division II team, but they might not play. Whereas if they go to possibly a Division III program, they love the campus, they love the team, and they're going to play maybe right away. So how important is that too? You want to get a feel for that. Like where that depth chart point is really important because some student athletes get very frustrated if they have to sit on the bench for 3 years. It might not be fun for them. Other athletes might be totally happy with that, being part of a team, maybe getting some scholarship money, I don't know, and they might not see the field. How important is that?
With the depth chart, we talk about that a little bit. How difficult has the transfer portal made recruiting out of high school? And is there any way or strategies or?
Well, one positive I see with the transfer portal is that this isn't as big of a decision. Like you're not stuck there if it's not working out. If you really don't like the place, if you really don't enjoy the team, you do have an opportunity to find another option. And it had, from what I've seen, there's a lot of shifting around.
Yes.
And so that's an advantage to that. A disadvantage to that is if you're really committed to this program, you come in as a freshman, you're working your tail off, and you're starting to see some playing time. Maybe they have a changing coach, maybe they don't, and they get some transfers in, that could knock you right down to the bench, you know? So it makes it a little less predictable, but the positive is it gives student athletes an opportunity to maybe go to a more comfortable situation.
NCAA has made the transfer portal a lot easier. They've taken it used to be very restricted, very hard. You had to get like permission from the conference you were in to transfer, and they've taken a lot of those restrictions away. So that's why if you follow, like I follow a lot of college softball, at the end of every season, that transfer portal is, you have all Americans that are transferring. So for various reasons, so they really made that transfer portal a lot easier for the positive and the negative. Keep going. No.
I have a lot of questions.
That's part of your.
You mentioned throughout the presentation how important it is to get information in writing. Is there a certain date at which they can put it in writing and not before, or how does that work, or can that come at any time?
Well, signing day.
Yeah, it's the National Signing Day is when, and that is also sport specific a little bit, but that is, I think happens in the fall for most sports of senior year.
So you really can't get anything in writing before?
They're going to be really kind of, yeah,
So it can just.
yeah. So it's just being, you know, kind of just keeping in contact. A lot of what you see when things kind of get shaken up is coaching changes is really when that happens. So like, again, I was recruited, I had one coach recruit me, got in, great. The summer before my freshman year, coach changed. So, you know, that's just kind of how things go. These coaches kind of move around a little bit. But that's when you kind of see some of the wonkiness happen, is if there's a coaching change. So that's something to be aware of. So maybe as a sophomore, you're being recruited by one coach, but by time junior year comes, you know, maybe there's another coach, and that's where some of that shifting might happen. Anything else?
What about route of junior college into today? Or is that hinder eligibility, or does it sometimes work if they want to take a year to just knock out a bunch of classes or get there? Like, together?
Yeah, so that's going
Great
to really
question.
depend on if they're competing, you know, as far as eligibility. So if they're going to Raritan Valley taking some courses, that doesn't take away from their eligibility. It would take away from their financial aid. So that's an important thing to understand is, you know, your financial aid, if you're accessing that financial aid, that's like an 8-semester situation, just like sports is an 8-semester situation. But if you're going and just taking classes, and then you're going to go from that community college or junior college, and then start your athletic career at the 4-year school. But if you play athletics at the junior college, then that starts your clock athletically.
Okay.
So yeah, so it all depends.
Yes, my daughter does club sports, so she's eligible for what would be her first year of college. She could actually be super senior and do that. So.
Yeah, so, right. So as soon as you start playing college sports, your clock starts.
Yeah, I had a parent contact me about reclassing. We don't do that in New Jersey. We don't reclass students. So in a situation, you know, where especially a male athlete, if you want another year to mature, get older, that type of thing, a gap year might be an opportunity, a prep school of some sort. You know, you have to be very careful and figure that out as far as how that's going to impact eligibility. But if they take a gap year to work out, play with their club or whatever, and take that time to just get more skilled or whatever they're doing, they can do it that way, or they might redshirt. to accomplish the same thing. And then you get that opportunity to get into the college classes, start doing that, and a redshirt year gives them an opportunity to really grow, mature, get stronger, bigger, faster, whatever their goal is, and then start their 4-year eligibility.
Anything else?
You are welcome to contact either one of us or the counselor that you work with. If you have any questions, we'll be glad to meet with you, go through transcripts, whatever. We're here to help you navigate this process. It can be confusing. We're glad to help you through it.
And if you have any specific questions, we'll hang out for a little bit. If you want to come up and ask us.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.